What's up, y'all? It's your boy Kairos, and I've got some exciting class changes that are actually looking really good. Um, just for some really quick spoilers, Enhance is getting a huge buff. Stormbringer's looking really good. Totemic's looking really good. Warrior damage is getting nerfed, but it's not. It's not the end. We're not getting slaughtered by the nerf hammer. Our burst damage is a little less, but our sustain is completely the same. We still have a ton of sustain. Still feel really good. So if you're worried about that, don't be. We're still going to have a lot of damage. Our Odin's Furies and our Bleeds are still going to do a pile of our damage. It's really not that much of a nerf. I mean, it is and it isn't, if that makes sense. We were so overtuned that we were killing people from 60% to basically zero. But anyway, to just start getting into it, Frost Strike damage reduced by 6, Obliterate damage reduced by 6, does not apply to PvP, Ice Death Torrent reduced by 10%. Again, not that big of a deal. Glacial Advance damage reduced by 10%, does not apply to PvP. This one I'm actually kind of like, ooh, let's see what this does. Umbral Intensity increases the damage of Wrath by 20 to 40. So that's obviously a nerf, which is good. Star Surge damage increased by 12%. Starfall damage increased by 20. I believe this is or not the enhance, their haste, where they spend, Starfall and Star Surge and they get a ton of haste. That's nice. So we're not seeing where Boomkins are casting at like 0.11, you know, you know, 1.1 seconds on a Wrath and just building so much. What's the resource called? We'll just call it Maelstrom, Druid Maelstrom, right? Devastation. This one has got me kind of scared. For a lot of different specs in the game right now, because this change right here, Firestorm damage increased by 20%. I believe this is just an AoE spell, but the fact that they're buffing it 6%, that's a huge buff. And then Engulf damage increased by 30% with Flame Shifter. And it, like, Devastation is already doing a lot of damage right now. And just Evoker in general is doing so much damage. Um, Hunters are getting a buff across the board, and Vicious Hunt is getting nerfed. Thank God for Survival, because Survival was doing a lot of damage. Beast Mastery, the problem with Beast Mastery was your pets can be slaughtered by any melee cleaves. Literally just, they're getting cleaved to death, they're all going to die. But it seems like they're buffing Beast Mastery, and the critical strike chances get increased. I think it's going to be really good for Beast Mastery. All these changes are looking really good. Um, just straight buffs and a little bit of a nerf to Survival, because Survival was kind of doing a little too much damage. And Fire Mage, this one's got me excited here. I love playing Fire Mage. I would say it's probably one of the funner specs in WoW. Living Bomb damage increased by 30%, because our Living Bomb was not that good. Pyroblast damage increased by 5, Flame Strike damage increased by 10. This just makes your overall thing with Frost or Fire just that much better if you're running the Flame Strike build, and it's actually really fun to play. Um, and then this Burden of Power can no longer be double dipped by spell queuing. Not really sure what that means so much. I'm sure that, if you go watch Aegis or whatever, you'll be able to find that out. Arcane Soul. I haven't really played too much of Fire yet. I want to dip around it, see how that's working out. A ret change, which is not sure how this is going to scale. Mastery High Lord's Judgment reduced by 10%. This was actually doing a ton of their damage. I remember this being one of my top damaging abilities for Retribution Paladin. But I believe, what is it, the Herald of the Sun, this damage is a modifier off of that, which is actually kind of nice. It's just a 5% damage increase, so it's making up for that mastery loss, which is kind of nice. Discipline, it's looking really good. Oracle Priest Preventive Measures is now increases power word absorption by 40%, now 25. Does not apply to PvP. Atonement healing increased by 100% outside of raid. was 70, does not apply to PvP, fixing the issue where atonement critical healing was not increased by the correct amount outside of raid. Shadow Word Pain and Pert's Wicked damage increased by 20%. It just gives them a little better atonement healing. Void Weaver, I've seen Shadow Priest do a lot of damage. I wonder if this is actually going to make their damage just on that much more unhealable. Shadow Priest were already looking really, really strong. Which, you know, good for them, I suppose. I don't really care for Shadow Priest, never have. They've always been really, really strong, regardless of what expansion. There's always been patches where they've been weak. It's strong, weak, strong, weak, strong, weak. It's where some specs are just crap for, you know, like 2 years, like Fury Warriors. But overall, I think that's a good change. I think everybody should be viable. I think Blizzard's finally putting that into practice. They're finally listening to people where they're not just ignoring specs entirely for, you know, 3 months, which is a nice fresh breath of air. I understand the 6% nerf for Elemental. That is doing a lot of damage, and then they're making Tempest just that much better for cleaving, where it's 60% of its damage is now hitting for 65% of its value instead of 50. Tempest now deals reduced damage beyond 5 targets. That's understandable. This doesn't really affect us too much in PvP. It can in RPGs maybe, but I don't know any RPG groups that are taking too many shamans, unless they're Resto or something, but even then they're, you know, mostly getting like Resto Druids or Fist Weavers or something like that. At least that's what it was last season. All damage reduced by 4%. This PvE changes, that's fine. Elemental Blast damage increased by 12%. It was a little bit low for Enhanced, it felt like. I mean, yeah, it did hit hard, but now it's just going to hit even harder. Same change with the Elementalist up here. Tremor damage increased by 10, and Searing Volley damage increased by 80%. Searing Volley damage was actually really bad, and Tremor damage increased by 10%. This is actually going to be kind of nuts in cleaving situations for Enhance. Just going to be overall good. This I don't understand. Maybe in it's PvE change, but Warlocks already do a ton of instant damage. So we'll see. But in high level PvP, like Warlocks cannot cast at all versus people that can actually kick them and they can't fake them. So that's probably a good change. I know this is all PvE up here, but finally to the PvP changes that are looking really good. Blizzard is actually listening. Rip damage and rate damage increased by 15% in PvP, just as the general tree. Balance has gotten some nerfs, thank God. Because balance is one of those specs where it looks kind of iffy, it looks kind of good, and then just entirely, it's either complete crap or it's completely OP. It doesn't die and it does the most damage. So that's always kind of been like a common theme for balance, which is really weird. But balance, if these changes don't slaughter the spec, I'm sure they won't. It's not really nerfing anything. Umbral now increases the damage of Wrath and Starfire by 40% in PvP combat, was 75. This is a good change. I feel like their builders shouldn't be like their top damage, which is a good change. And thank God they nerfed Feral Druid. Like, good Ferals would open on you, get to their Feral Frenzy, Tiger Fury, and then use all their cooldowns at once and literally one-shot you. Take about 80% of your health while you're sitting stuns, because they have, like, you know, 3 stuns. They're basically a rogue. And this one for Frost, thank God. Ice Lance, so what mages were doing was, instead of running the big glacial one-shot with the 5 Ice Lances, they were just running where each time they spam Ice Lance, their Ice Lances hit the ones that they stack up, and they would get that through Flurry and Frostfire. And they were consistently critting for 8 to 900k, which was insane. They're still going to be really strong. I don't really think this pushes Frost down a whole bunch because overall the mages are always really strong, just with their toolkit and everything else. But this just makes Frost Mage just not be a one button dream for Frost Mage, because let's be honest, all they spam was Frostbolt, Flurry, and Ice Lance, and that's about it. And now they can't just roll their head on the keyboard and kill you, which is nice. Manifestation is now 50% effective in PvP. This was actually doing a lot of damage. If I'm thinking of the right spell, chi burst damage for Brewmaster reduced by 40% in PvP combat. This is a good change. Brewmaster literally is one-shotting people, essentially. This change for Mistweaver, I don't really understand this so much. I mean, the reason is Life Cocoon is 30% more effective in PvP, and Enveloping Mist can't be dispelled. These two changes I understand right here, because Life Cocoon, you could actually just tear through that a lot of the time, depending on the dampening. And Mistweaver's already really, really not that efficient with mana. But this I don't really understand with Peaceweaver. Because it reduces the cooldown of revival by 33% and was 50. But the thing is if you're fist weaving, you needed this to stay on the target and immune CC and immune to go, which was strong. But as a Mistweaver, you can basically only queue with casters now if this is going to be the case, because I don't know, maybe it can work with fist weaving, but Mistweaver just still is not looking that good. Enveloping Mist, now can't be dispelled. That's actually a really good change, because they would just spam purge you and you would always just die. Prayer of Mending healing increased by 65% in PvP combat. Holy it's holy. I mean, when has Holy ever been good besides when they're just, you can't touch them or anything else? They're still that same way, but I'm not sure how this is going to work. 65% in PvP, I think that might be really good. I'm sure it is, but I guess we'll see. Holy's in a really bad spot. I think basically it's like the worst healer in the game. It's a lot better than Mistweaver. Mistweaver at least has HPS, and they have availability to go in between Fistweaver and Caster. But we'll see. I know this is a really good change for Mistweaver here. I played Mistweaver a little bit, and seeing my Enveloping Mist instantly get purged was not a good feeling, because it would make me have to spam Vivify and basically and never be able to recover, and I was basically always 2 globals behind, because you, as Mistweaver, you would either have to use your 30-second potion, and I think it's like your empowered thing where you get 2 globals of either Vivify or 2 instant casts of Enveloping Mist, and seeing those just disappear when my team is taking a lot of damage, and I have to burst heal them on that 30-second cooldown, and I would rather not use Cocoon. I would rather set the pace for, I'm going to get CC'd, and if I'm not CC'd, I'd rather not use, or if I see the CC incoming, I would rather use my Life Cocoon and save their life and prevent a go, which is a really good change. The Enhancement and the Warrior are the last 2 classes. Lava Blast damage increased by 60% in PvP combat. This is crazy. This is absolutely nuts, because your Lava Lashes were already hitting super hard, and now they're just going to hit 60% harder. I think it was hitting. They've been able to hit for about 1 million if they're critting with all your cooldowns and you've got all your procs and everything. Storm Strike and Wind Strike damage increased by 60% in PvP combat. I was thinking, oh, at 20%, 60%, 60% Blizzard. Thank you. This is going to make people cry about Enhanced now. And Wind Fury damage increased by 60% in PvP. Oh, boy. Doom Winds is back, boys. Bloodlust Doom Winds, they both line up. You do a pile of damage. You're just going to kill everybody. Enhanced went from, basically D tier poopy garbage to to God tier. We are gods now. We will dominate. We will dominate the earth. Of course, okay, now to move on from the warrior. Okay, so I know some people might see these changes as horrible. Um, and honestly, the thunderous roar damage, I don't really. Uh, it's yes, thunderous roar damage is really high, but this nerf, I think this is a little much. I think it should be more like 10%, but thunderous roar damage is already, like one of your top damaging abilities. I'm just glad they didn't nerf the bleed damage that it modifies, so our bleed damage is still going to be extremely high. Auto attack damage no longer decreased by additional 12% in PvP combat. That's nice for arms. So arms gets a slight buff, not really anything. Odin's Fury damage reduced by 20% PvP combat. We could literally global people with Odin's Fury by popping all their cooldowns. It's whatever. It's still going to be one of your top damaging abilities, even though it's a 20% nerf. Who really cares? It's cleaving is believing. Our sustain damage is already really high as Fury. We still have a ton of kill pressure. We're not just, oh, well, wait till cooldowns, which feels good. I think Fury is going to be completely fine. I think maybe, it goes from S tier plus to S tier. This doesn't really change anything. We're still going to be incredibly viable. I think, if anything, it just makes arms weaker. And yes, it does make Fury weaker, yes, of course. But I think Fury will still just be a juggernaut out of everything. And Enhancement goes from dog shit spec all the way to god tier spec. I'm super excited that Enhance is now godly. And Frost Mages can bite the dust. And y'all have a good one. I'm glad I could show you these changes. Alright, stay minty out there, you pricks.